Hey everybody, it's Jason. As I promised yesterday, after a couple martinis and a couple beers, and because I have nothing else to do, I decided to make some videos. I'm going to do one each day, and we're going to make a martini. And I'm going to show you, because a lot of people have mentioned that they missed the martinis from Sapphire. By the way, I am still wearing and rocking the old Sapphire shirt. So I'm going to show you how to make a classic martini. Today's classic. Tomorrow we're going to do the Expresso Martini. So first I want to explain a couple things. I'm here in Medellin. We are flattening the curve, and I'm fattening my curves because we're on lockdown. So there's nothing for us to do until April 20th. So we're basically stuck here. So as most of you know, we are building an Airbnb called the Quarantini House. Now you can't see it, I'll show you pictures later, but it is right over there. We're right across the street from it. But the Quarantini House is on hold because we can't get the workers in here because everybody's locked down. So this is the Quarantini House, and we're gonna make you some drinks so that you guys can get this booze. In Colombia, luckily they deliver booze to you. So what we can do is we can drink because there's nothing else to do. So, and yes, I sanitized my hands. I also sanitized my wife and my mother-in-law when they came home from shopping. So, washed my hands, and we are gonna start off with a classic martini. So this martini was originally, it was gin. It was a little different. It had sweet vermouth, red vermouth, or sweet vermouth and red vermouth, yeah, and some cherry juice, and it was more like a Manhattan when it was first come. There's not really any definite source, but most people say that it was created by a bartender who basically is the original flair bartender. He was the one who he created the Blue Blazer. He invented that. So, and that was basically you take 2 cups and you set scotch on fire with some sugar, and then you mix them together through the air. He used to carry around a gold case of bar tools, and he's been largely credited, but it's always debatable because the internet wasn't around way back then. And it originally was made with gin, and you could still make it. So if you don't like vodka, you can replace this with gin. That's not a problem. But vodka is most popular in the States and in Canada. So we're going to start off. We have 2 martini glasses here, okay? And we are going to fill these suckers with some ice cubes. And again, I wash my hands, but it's going to be chock full of booze. So we should be just fine. Okay, I'm going to make 2. And I'll tell you why in a second. So we are going to make 2 different martinis. We're going to make a quick and simple one first. We've got the glasses chilling. Got some ice cubes. All right, so very simple. There's nothing to it, but the problem is it's the amount of vermouth and it's the amount people shake or stir a martini. So if you go in and you see a guy and he just shakes it a couple times, he's not a real bartender. You got to really shake it. And for vermouth, usually I have to go in and ask them, tell them exactly how I want it, especially when I was working on the ships and I would go to the hotels between ships. And the hotel bartenders weren't always great at making martinis, so I would have to explain it to them. So we've got our shaker cup. Now I don't have all my proper tools, unfortunately, so I have to use what I've got for now because all my tools are packed away. Waiting for the Martini House to open up. Okay, so I'm gonna put in 1.5 ounces twice. So we got 3 ounces. And these glasses are pretty big, so. You'll always add the vodka first, because if you pour it over top of the ice, where you put the ice in first, it actually dilutes it a little bit more. So I'm gonna take, because we're short on ice, don't have an ice machine, not in the Quarantini House, and I've got 2 giant ice cubes, and I'm gonna throw them in here. And this is just the simple part, okay? You're just gonna take it, and you're gonna shake. should be doing this until it's so cold you can barely hang on anymore. Now, see, it's so sticky. So that is a good shake. Now, I'm gonna put that off to the side. One quick second. All right, so there's a different couple ways. We're gonna do this my way, the way we used to do it at Sapphire. So this is a spray bottle filled with vermouth. So the easiest way to do it, you don't waste vermouth, so you just pour it in there. Okay? And I'll show you another way later. Super simple. So it's always get just sweet regular dry vermouth. Okay? And you try to spin it around the outside so that it grabs more of the vermouth and puts it down. Okay, so we're almost done. And it's your choice. So you have two options. This one I'm gonna make because this is the way I like my martinis. It's quick, it's simple. The other way takes a little bit longer. We'll get to that in a second. But I like a lemon. So we're gonna do it the old Canby way. For those of you who don't know who Canby is, I used to work with him at Sapphire. Actually, I used to work for him and then took over when he left. And he taught me this little trick. So this is a zester. Basically, you just do a nice big line, and I'm going to try to do it over the glass to get some of that zest in there. I'm going to get a nice big peel. We're going to do a little trick. Usually I would do it with a straw. Okay, and then we're just going to zip this into a little circle. Can't believe after all this time I still haven't lost my touch. Alright. Then, squeeze. You can let them, if you want to keep them, and make a whole bunch of them at the same time like we used to do. Put them in a bowl, cover them with a wet piece of, or a damp paper towel, and it will last for hours and it won't turn brown. And then now, take a look at that puppy. And then there you go. And that is a classic martini. Shaken, not stirred. And if you want to do it James Bond style, use Smirnoff. Fantastic. For this is actually really good vodka, and it's super cheap. And when I can't find Smirnoff, I actually buy this stuff. So, all right. So now we're gonna do the other one. All right, so for that first segment, it might tick off a few people who in the industry is what we call purists. And purists are basically classical cocktail makers and martini makers that, really go beyond what they like. I'm not gonna give my personal feelings. I've made both because that's what my guests have wanted in the past. But a purist will tell you that you should never shake a martini. You should always stir it, especially if it's a clear vodka or gin martini. So I get that. I do this here because it's quick. But we are going to do a classic one so that I show both sides and then you choose what you like, because in the end it's really up to you no matter what bartenders tell you. So we're going to do this, all right? And there's two things. So the next one is you can choose. So when you go and you ask a martini, they'll ask you if you want it dry, if you want it perfect, which is, some people think, oh, perfect martini, like you make a good one. No, it's more qualitative than quantitative. So it's basically meaning that if you want it extra dry, then you're gonna put as little vermouth in as possible. If you like a wet martini, you're gonna put in a lot more, and you can actually leave some in the glass. So I prefer mine dry. And a perfect martini is actually equal amounts red vermouth or sweet vermouth and dry vermouth. So when you ask for a perfect martini, be careful what you're asking for. Just ask for a good one. Don't ask for a perfect one, because you might get something you're not expecting. So for garnishes, there are actually 3 types of garnishes, and there's lots more, obviously. Like in Sapphire, we used to do giant olives. Unfortunately, these are the size of olives. They have great coffee, they have terrible olives in this country, so I can only get the three little small ones. But normally you can, we used to stuff them with blue cheese, which is amazing. You can stuff them with anchovies, prosciutto ham, almond stuffed. There's sun-dried tomatoes is another one, and you can make your own. Just buy the big queen olives without the pimento in the center. So you can either have two, and then for this, you could actually add a little bit more juice and make it dirty. And then down the road, I'll make you one called a porn star martini, and that was because it's a dirty martini, but there's nothing dirtier than a porn star. So that you actually put in muddled olives and lots of, like, 2 tablespoons of olive juice. It makes it super dirty, too salty for me, but some people like that stuff. The last one is a Gibson, and this is a pickled onion. Now, normally you would put 3. It's always the trinity when you do it, like when you make an espresso martini, which I'm gonna make for you tomorrow, you put on three beans. You always like to put on 3 olives, especially if they're the bigger ones. Unfortunately, and you could put 1 if you want, but unfortunately, my pickle jar only came with 1. So you're just getting an example. So you could put that in there too. It's up to you. It gives it a different tang because they're pickled, but it's your choice. But I fished that one out of the pickle jar just for you. All right, so now we're gonna get on. I'm gonna empty this out first, and I'm gonna show you. Okay, so now my glass is nice and chilled, and I'm gonna show you there's a different way to do this. So if you want a little bit more vermouth, and you will see some bartenders do this, I prefer the spritz method because I get the exact amount that I like every time, and I don't waste any, because it's very hard to find vermouth here. To be honest with you, that's reasonably priced. It's actually as expensive as a bottle of vodka. So that's crazy. So what you do, you can swirl it around, and you try to get all the way up to the edges, and then if you want not very dry martini, then you could leave that in. But if you want a regular dry martini, you just throw it out. Okay? So then you're left with a nice little hint. Okay? There we go. See, I'm missing all my tools, my pour spouts and everything. It's a bugger. All right. So now we're going to pour 3 ounces into the glass. Okay. Put that over here. And then we're going, we've been outside for a little bit, so I'm going to make sure I don't get the water in there. All right. And now we're going to take this, okay, and then you're just going to stir. There we go. And I watched a program once, and it was basically telling you that it is 28 times that you stir this. Don't count, because I'm not counting, but they say if you stir it 28 times. The difference between this martini and the one that I made earlier is that they say this way you're not breaking the breaking the ice. And when you're breaking the ice, you are creating more water than vodka ratio, and you're basically watering it down. Not necessarily I believe that. If you feel that it's a little too weak, in the one I made earlier, add more vodka. Works perfectly. All right, so I don't have all my tools, so I'm gonna have to pour this back into this empty container, okay? And do it this way because I don't have my tools. But normally I would use a strainer, okay? All right, so then if you want olives, this is the way that you should do it. You rim the olives around the edge and then stick it in. What that does is it gives that hint of that flavor, because people obviously want the olives because they like it. And when they sip that first thing, no matter where they sip it, they'll get a little taste of olives. So that's a good idea. The other way you can do it is, we're gonna do it, most cocktail bartenders do it, they don't do it the way I do it with the little rim. They'll actually take a peel, okay? And over top of the glass, because you want to get that piece, you want to get that zest in here, rub around the edges and sink that in there. And that is our 2 ways to do a classic martini: shaken and stirred. So I'm a little bit rusty, but it still tastes delicious. And That's it. I just hope you guys enjoyed it. It was just for shits and giggles and to help everybody do something and enjoy a good drink. So stay safe, wash your hands.